Welcome back to Infidelity Tales Lab. Thank you for making time for us in your day. Quick question for our audience. Where in the world are you watching from right now? We're always curious. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Foundations of Sand. Wade Harmon had built his life on precision and calculation. At 42, he had transformed from a hardscrabble kid from rural Montana to one of the most respected structural engineers in Phoenix. His company, Cornerstone Engineering, had designed half the new skyline, and his reputation for delivering impossible projects on impossible deadlines had made him a wealthy man. On this particular Thursday evening, Wade sat in his home office, reviewing the final plans for the Meridian Tower project. The glass walls of his workspace offered a panoramic view of the Camelback Mountains, bathed in the amber glow of sunset. 15 years ago, he couldn't have dreamed of owning this modernist masterpiece nestled in Paradise Valley. Back then, he'd been sleeping on a pull-out couch in a studio apartment, working 18-hour days to build his business. That was when he'd met Tessa Galloway. She'd been waiting tables at Rosario's, the Italian restaurant where he took his only break of the day. Tessa, with her auburn hair and quick laugh, had been a fine arts major with dreams of opening her own gallery. She'd slipped him her number on a napkin along with his usual black coffee. 6 months later, they were married at the courthouse, with only his brother Cody as witness. Wade smiled at the memory, though the expression didn't reach his eyes. Lately, things had been different. The easy conversations had dried up. Tessa's art studio in their guest house sat unused for months. Their schedules rarely aligned, with her girls' nights becoming more frequent and his project deadlines more demanding. The buzz of his phone interrupted his thoughts. It was a text from Reed Blackwell, his oldest friend and head of security for Cornerstone. "You were right. Third time this week. Same location." Attached was a photo of Tessa's white Range Rover parked outside the Westward Ho Hotel. Wade's jaw tightened. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he opened his laptop and pulled up the banking app. The joint account showed another unexplained withdrawal of $5,000 from yesterday. That made $15,000 in the past month. Wade had grown up with nothing. His father had walked out when he was 8, leaving his mother to raise him and Cody on a teacher's salary. He'd learned to notice patterns, to pay attention to details others missed. The inconsistencies in Tessa's behavior had started small. New clothes she never wore around him, unexplained absences, password changes on her phone. Now he had bank withdrawals and surveillance photos. The rational part of his brain had already accepted what was happening. The emotional part needed proof he couldn't deny. Wade picked up his personal phone and opened the fake Instagram account he'd created last week under the name Phoenix Enthusiast. Tessa had announced another girls' night for tomorrow at Penelope's, a new rooftop bar downtown. According to her sister Naomi, these gatherings often turned into impromptu live streams for their circle of friends. He set a notification for Tessa's account and returned to his work. Whatever was happening, Wade Harmon would face it with the same methodical precision he applied to everything else in his life. He wouldn't react without complete information. And when he did react, it would be decisive. As midnight approached, Wade heard Tessa's key in the front door. He closed his laptop and listened to her movements, the clatter of heels being kicked off, the rustle of her purse being set down, the refrigerator opening and closing. She didn't call out to see if he was still awake. Wade turned off his office light and stood in darkness, watching as she moved through their home like a stranger, checking her phone with a small smile he hadn't seen directed at him in months. "Long night?" he asked, stepping into the hallway. Tessa startled, nearly dropping her phone. "Jesus, Wade, you scared me. Sorry, just finishing up some work." He noticed how she subtly turned her phone screen away from him. "Yeah, Naomi was having a rough time. Her divorce, you know." Tessa's explanation came too quickly, too rehearsed. Wade nodded. "Is she doing any better?" "A bit. Listen, I'm exhausted. Go in a shower and crash." "I'll be up soon," Wade said, though they both knew it was a formality. They hadn't shared physical intimacy in nearly 6 months. As Tessa disappeared into their bedroom, Wade returned to his office and opened his laptop again. He pulled up the GPS history on Tessa's phone. A feature she'd forgotten was enabled when they'd set up their family account years ago. The map showed no trace of Naomi's address in Scottsdale. Instead, it revealed 3 hours spent at the Westward Ho Hotel. Wade closed the laptop again and stared out at the distant city lights. Tomorrow he would have his proof, and then he would begin to plan. Chapter 2. The Revelation. Friday evening arrived with the brutal heat typical of a Phoenix summer. Wade had spent the day in meetings, his mind only half present as he reviewed structural calculations and approved material changes. At 5 o'clock, he informed his assistant he would be working remotely for the remainder of the evening and drove home. Tessa was already gone when he arrived, her perfume lingering in their bedroom where she'd gotten ready. Wade changed into casual clothes, opened a bottle of 15-year-old Macallan, and poured 2 fingers into a crystal tumbler. He wasn't typically a drinker, but tonight seemed to warrant the exception. At 8:30 p.m., his phone buzzed. Phoenix core enthusiast had received a notification. Tessa Harmon Designs is now live. Wade took a slow sip of scotch and tapped the notification. Tessa's face filled the screen, flushed with alcohol and laughter. The camera panned to show a group of women seated around a private table on Penelope's rooftop patio, the city lights glittering behind them. Wade recognized most of them, friends from Tessa's art circle, a couple of wives of his business associates. Ladies, we've got nearly 30 people watching. Tessa giggled, reading comments that scrolled too quickly for Wade to catch. Yes, Stephanie, the view is amazing. Phoenix's finest architects, right here. The camera turned again, revealing a section of the table Wade hadn't seen initially. There, seated among the women, was his brother Cody, his arm draped casually over the shoulder of a man Wade recognized as Michael Rafferty, a real estate developer who had consulted on several cornerstone projects. Wade's grip tightened on his glass as he watched the interaction unfold. Cody and Rafferty seemed completely at ease in what was supposedly a girls' night. The camera eventually swung back to Tessa, who was now taking questions from viewers. Tessa, when are you opening your gallery? Someone asked. She laughed. When I finally get my settlement. Maybe next year. Wade's pulse quickened. Settlement? They weren't divorcing. At least, he hadn't been informed of any proceedings. Speaking of which, called a voice off camera that Wade recognized as Vivian, one of Tessa's oldest friends. You never answered my question from last week. Do you love Wade? Like, actually love him? The camera steadied on Tessa's face as she took a long sip of her cocktail. There was a moment when her expression shifted, the practiced smile slipping to reveal something colder, more calculating. Wade, she said with a small laugh. He's a paycheck, not a soulmate. We haven't connected in years. Wade sat perfectly still, his face expressionless as he continued watching. So what's the plan? Vivian pressed. Tessa glanced off camera, and the view shifted to include Mike Rafferty, who raised his glass with a smirk. Mike and I have plans after the divorce, Tessa continued, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret with her closest friends rather than a live audience. We're thinking Sedona. A small gallery for me, new development opportunities for him. The women laughed appreciatively, and the camera swung around again, capturing Cody in the background. Wade's brother, his only blood relative, caught the eye of someone in the group and deliberately raised his glass in a silent toast. Wade closed the app without watching further. He set his phone down carefully on his desk and finished his scotch in a single swallow. The burning in his throat was the only sensation he permitted himself to feel. For 15 minutes, he sat motionless, processing what he had witnessed. It wasn't just the infidelity. It was the casual cruelty, the mockery, the obvious long-term planning behind his back. And his brother's involvement cut deepest of all. His phone buzzed again with a cascade of messages from Tessa. Wade, are you watching my live? Wade, someone said you might be on here. Please tell me you didn't see that. It's not what it sounded like. Wade, answer me. The messages continued, increasing in urgency, but Wade didn't respond. Instead, he opened his laptop and began a series of methodical steps. First, he transferred half of their joint accounts to a new account in his name only. Not everything, that would alert her too quickly. Just enough to secure his immediate future. Second, he called his company's general counsel, Marilyn Schaefer, despite the late hour. I need to protect the business, he said simply when she answered. I have reason to believe I'll be facing divorce proceedings soon. I'm sorry to hear that, Wade, Marilyn replied, her voice professional. I'll prepare the necessary documentation to isolate Cornerstone from any personal legal issues. Should I contact Preston about this? She was referring to Preston Galloway, Tess's father and a silent investor in Cornerstone's early days. Not yet. I need to assess the situation first. After ending the call, Wade opened a new document and began typing, creating a timeline of events, noting every inconsistency and unexplained absence from the past year. He worked with the same precision he applied to structural calculations, mapping out the architecture of his marriage's collapse. By midnight, Tess's messages had reached 53 in number. The final ones had become frantic, indicating she was outside his home office door. Wade could hear her calling his name, the doorknob rattling, but he had locked it earlier, something he never usually did. Wade, please. It was just stupid drunk talk. Please open the door. He continued typing, his expression unchanged. I'll call the police if you don't answer me. I'll tell them you're suicidal. At this, Wade finally stood. He walked to the door, unlocked it, and opened it to find Tessa tear-streaked and panicked. I saw everything, he said quietly. You might, Cody. Everything. Tessa's face crumpled. It's not. We were just... Save it. Wade's voice remained calm, almost gentle. You should pack what you need for tonight and stay with Naomi. Or Mike. Your choice. This is my house, too. Tessa protested, switching tactics. You can't just kick me out. I'm not kicking you out permanently. I'm asking you to leave tonight so we both have space to think. Tomorrow, we can discuss how to proceed. Something in his measured tone must have frightened her more than anger would have, because Tessa backed away. This isn't over, she warned. Wade nodded. No, it's just beginning. He closed the door again and returned to his desk, listening as Tessa moved through the house, gathering her things. When he heard her car start and the garage door close, he opened a new browser tab and began researching divorce attorneys in Phoenix, specifically those with reputations for handling high-asset cases with ruthless efficiency. The betrayal he had witnessed tonight was not just about infidelity. It was about identity. For 15 years, he had been Wade Harmon, Tessa's husband, Cody's brother, the dependable provider. Now he would need to become someone else, someone capable of calculating not just loads and stresses in buildings, but in human relationships. Someone who could dismantle the false structures around him and rebuild on truth, no matter how painful. Chapter 3, Tactical Retreat. The weekend passed in a blur of legal consultations and strategic planning. Wade met with 3 different divorce attorneys before selecting Dominic Vega, a former prosecutor known for his meticulousness and discretion. By Sunday evening, he had secured his financial assets, documented the evidence of Tessa's infidelity, and begun preparations for what he knew would be a protracted battle. Throughout this time, Tessa had continued her barrage of messages, alternating between tearful apologies, angry accusations, and manipulative appeals to their history together. She had returned to the house twice, once with Naomi in tow as emotional support, and once alone, pounding on the door at 2 a.m., clearly intoxicated. Wade had not engaged. Monday morning found him in his downtown office earlier than usual, reviewing the Meridian Tower blueprints with forced concentration. His assistant, Loretta, brought in coffee and hovered uncertainly by his desk. Is everything all right, Mr. Harmon? She asked. You've been in since 5 a.m. Wade looked up. Loretta had been with him for 12 years. She had helped plan his anniversary surprises for Tessa, had sent flowers when his mother died. She deserved more than evasion. Tessa and I are separating, he said simply. It's going to get complicated. I may need to adjust some meetings in the coming weeks. Loretta's eyes widened slightly, but her professionalism held. I'm very sorry to hear that. Should I remove Mrs. Harmon from the company holiday party list? Wade almost smiled at the practical question. Yes, that would be appropriate. And Loretta, if my brother calls or comes by, I'm unavailable indefinitely. Understood. She hesitated. And Mr. Rafferty's team? They're scheduled for the quarterly review on Wednesday. Cancel it. Cite scheduling conflicts. We'll work with Anderson Group on Meridian instead. After Loretta left, Wade opened his personal email to find a message from Preston Galloway, Tessa's father. The subject line read simply, "We should talk." Wade considered ignoring it, but Preston had been more than an investor in Cornerstone's early days. He had been a mentor when Wade was struggling to establish himself in Phoenix's competitive construction landscape. The older man had seen something in the determined engineer from Montana, something worth backing when banks had turned him away. He picked up his phone and dialed Preston's number. "Wade." Preston's voice was grave. "I assume you know why I'm calling." "Tessa told you her version of events," Wade replied, keeping his tone neutral. "She says you've locked her out of the house and frozen all the accounts. She says you're punishing her for one indiscreet comment at a girls' night." Wade closed his eyes briefly. "Did she mention that this indiscreet comment involved her plans to divorce me and start a new life with Mike Rafferty in Sedona? Or that my brother was present, apparently supporting this arrangement?" There was a long silence before Preston spoke again. "No, she left those details out. I thought she might have." Wade's grip on the phone tightened. "Preston, I respect you enormously. You took a chance on me when no one else would. But I need you to understand that I have evidence of a long-term affair, unexplained withdrawals from our joint accounts totaling over $50,000 in the past 6 months, and a coordinated plan to blindside me with divorce proceedings once certain business arrangements were in place." Another silence, longer this time. "I always worried she had too much of her mother in her," Preston finally said. "Vanessa never could see the value of what was right in front of her either." "I'm not trying to turn you against your daughter," Wade said, "but I won't be played for a fool." "What do you need from me, Wade?" "Nothing. Cornerstone is stable, and your investment is secure. I just need you to understand that what's happening isn't a tantrum or an overreaction. It's self-preservation." After ending the call, Wade turned his attention to a new email that had just arrived. It was from Reed Blackwell, containing a detailed surveillance report on Mike Rafferty's movements over the past week, along with financial records that Reed's contact had obtained through not entirely legal channels. The picture it painted was illuminating. Rafferty had been systematically positioning himself to capitalize on inside information about Cornerstone's projects. His development company had quietly acquired land adjacent to 3 major Cornerstone construction sites, and he had recently taken meetings with 2 of Wade's largest competitors. Even more concerning were the regular transfers from an offshore account to a new LLC registered in Tessa's maiden name. The amounts corresponded exactly to the withdrawals from their joint account, suggesting Tessa was matching Rafferty's contributions to fund whatever venture they were planning. Wade downloaded the documents to an encrypted folder and forwarded certain key pieces to Dominic Vega. Then he opened a secure messaging app and contacted Reed. "Need to meet. Tonight. The usual place." The reply came immediately. 8 p.m. "I'll bring the files on Cody too." Wade set down his phone and stared out at the Phoenix skyline. Buildings, unlike people, were honest in their construction. Their flaws couldn't be hidden behind smiles and reassurances. They revealed themselves under pressure in moments of structural testing. What he had discovered about his marriage, his brother, and his business relationships was merely the surface evidence of deeper structural failures. He would need to demolish it all and start again. But first, he needed a complete understanding of what he was dealing with. Only then could he begin to design his response, one that would ensure those who had betrayed him would never forget the cost of their decisions. Chapter 4. Drawing Board. The Rusty Nail was the kind of bar that had existed in downtown Phoenix since before the city's Renaissance, stubbornly resisting the wave of artisanal cocktail lounges and farm-to-table restaurants that now surrounded it. It was dim, anonymous, and perfect for conversations that needed to remain private. Wade sat in a back booth, nursing a club soda while waiting for Reed. The last time they'd met here had been 5 years ago, when they discovered that one of their project managers was selling proprietary designs to a competitor. The man had been fired, sued, and ultimately barred from the industry. Wade had been merciful then, accepting a settlement rather than pressing for criminal charges. He wasn't feeling merciful now. Reed arrived precisely at 8 p.m., sliding into the booth with a manila envelope that he kept beneath his palm. At 50, Reed was a decade older than Wade, with the weathered face of a man who had seen combat in his military days and plenty of ugliness in his civilian career as well. "You look like hell," Reed observed. "Been a rough few days," Wade admitted. "What did you find on Cody?" Reed opened the envelope and slid several photos across the table. "Your brother's been in deep with Rafferty for at least 9 months. They first connected through some gambling debts Cody couldn't cover. Rafferty paid them off in exchange for information about Cornerstone's upcoming projects." Wade examined the photos. Cody and Rafferty at a casino in Scottsdale, at a private airfield, entering the Westward Ho Hotel. "The connection to Tessa started about 7 months ago," Reed continued. "At first, it seems Rafferty was just using her to get closer to you. But then it evolved into something more, mutually beneficial. The last photo showed all three of them, Tessa, Mike, and Cody, reviewing documents in what appeared to be a hotel suite. Tessa was pointing to something on a blueprint, her expression animated in a way Wade hadn't seen in years. "What are they looking at?" "Property maps for land surrounding your Sedona project. Rafferty's been buying it up through shell companies. Based on what my source at the county records office says, they've acquired about 80% of the adjacent parcels." Wade's jaw tightened. The Sedona project was Cornerstone's most ambitious undertaking yet. A sustainable luxury resort that would set new standards for environmentally conscious construction in Arizona. He had spent 3 years securing the permits, navigating the strict zoning requirements, and designing buildings that would complement rather than intrude upon the Red Rock landscape. "They're planning to hijack the project," Wade said quietly. "Use my work to enhance the value of their properties, then either force me to buy them out at inflated prices or block my access routes." Reed nodded. "That's my read. But there's more." He pulled out a flash drive. "Rafferty's company is on shaky financial ground. He's leveraged to the hilt on these land purchases. If the Sedona project stalls or gets canceled, he's done." Wade pocketed the drive. "And Cody? What's his stake in this?" 10% of the new development company they've formed, plus whatever Rafferty's paying him for Cornerstone information. Reed hesitated. "There's something else you should know. Your brother's gambling problem is worse than I initially thought. He owes money to some people you don't want to be associated with. The kind who don't use lawyers to collect debts." Wade absorbed this information with the same outward calm he'd maintained throughout the ordeal, but internally, pieces were falling into place. Cody's recent requests for loans, his increased interest in Wade's business dealings, the unexplained bruise Wade had noticed on his brother's face last month. "What about Preston?" Wade asked. "Is he involved?" Reed shook his head. "No evidence of that. From what I can tell, Tessa's been keeping her father in the dark. She knows he respects you." Wade nodded, a small relief in the cascade of betrayals. He pushed the photos back toward Reed. "I need copies of everything digitally secured, and I need you to continue monitoring them, especially any meetings with my competitors or financial institutions." "Already on it. What's your play here, Wade?" Wade stared into his glass for a long moment. "They want to use my work, my reputation, and my relationships to enrich themselves at my expense. They're counting on me following the expected script: get angry, get sloppy, make mistakes they can exploit in court and in business. And instead, I'm going to give them exactly what they want: access to Cornerstone, to the Sedona project, to everything they think they're clever enough to steal." Wade's eyes hardened. "And when they're fully committed, when they've invested everything and burned all other bridges, I'll show them what it really costs to betray me." Reed studied his friend's face. "This isn't just business for you anymore." "No," Wade agreed. "It's education. They need to learn that actions have consequences. Permanent ones." As they left the bar, Wade outlined the first phase of his plan. Reed would continue gathering intelligence while Wade would appear to be a man distracted by marital problems, making small but noticeable errors in judgment that Rafferty and Cody could exploit. "What about Tessa?" Reed asked as they reached the parking lot. "She's been calling my wife, crying about how you've changed the locks and won't talk to her." "Let her cry," Wade said coldly. "By next week, I'll have moved out of the house completely. She can have it, temporarily. Make sure your wife knows not to share any information about me or my whereabouts." "She's loyal to you," Reed assured him. "Always has been." As Wade drove home through the quiet streets of Paradise Valley, he reflected on loyalty, how rare it was, how valuable, and how completely he had misplaced his trust in the people closest to him. Except for Reed, and possibly Preston, though that relationship would be tested by what was to come. The house was dark when he arrived, but he could see evidence of Tessa's visit earlier in the day. A coffee cup in the sink, mail scattered on the counter. She still had her key, of course. He would need to use that. Wade went to his office and powered up his secure laptop. He accessed the home security system and reviewed the footage from when Tessa had been there. As he suspected, she had gone straight to his office, trying unsuccessfully to access his computer. She had then made a phone call, speaking in hushed tones. Wade turned up the volume. "He's got everything locked down," Tessa was saying. "I can't get into his files. No, I don't think he suspects the full plan yet. Yes, I'm still meeting with the attorney tomorrow. Don't worry. He'll be reasonable once the initial shock wears off. Wade hates conflict. Yes, I'll call Cody and tell him to keep his distance for now." Wade smiled without humor. How little they knew him, despite all their years together. Wade didn't hate conflict. He simply preferred to engage on his own terms, with careful preparation. And those terms were now being set. He switched off the footage and opened a new document, beginning to draft what appeared to be hastily written notes about the Sedona project, notes that contained deliberate errors in the sustainability metrics and access route planning. Tomorrow, he would accidentally leave these notes visible on his desk when he knew Tessa would be visiting the house again. Step by step, he would construct a false narrative for them to follow, a path that appeared to lead to their triumph, but would ultimately reveal itself as their undoing. Like any good structural engineer, Wade understood that the most devastating collapses came not from obvious flaws, but from subtle weaknesses that remained hidden until the critical moment of failure. Chapter 5. Foundation Work. 2 weeks passed in a carefully orchestrated dance of apparent vulnerability and strategic errors. Wade moved into a minimalist apartment in downtown Phoenix, leaving the Paradise Valley house to Tessa. On the surface, he appeared to be a man struggling to cope with the implosion of his marriage, canceling meetings, arriving late to job sites, making small but noticeable errors in project specifications. In reality, every misstep was calculated. Each forgotten document, each careless conversation overheard by Cody's contacts within Cornerstone was designed to feed a specific narrative to his betrayers. On this particular morning, Wade sat across from Dominic Vega in the attorney's sleek downtown office, reviewing the latest developments in what was becoming a contentious divorce proceeding. Tessa's counsel is pushing hard for temporary spousal support at $30,000 monthly, Vega reported, sliding a document across the desk. "They're claiming she sacrificed her career for your success and deserved to maintain her current lifestyle during proceedings." Wade scanned the petition, noting Tessa's convenient omission of the fact that her sacrificed art career had been generously funded by him for years, with a fully equipped studio, gallery connections, and marketing support that had yielded minimal results. "What's your recommendation?" he asked. "Offer $15,000 with strict conditions about property usage and bill payments. It's generous enough to make you look reasonable to the court, but restrictive enough to frustrate her." Wade nodded. "Do it. What about the request for access to Cornerstone's financial records?" "I've filed our objection, but they're arguing that her support claim requires understanding the full extent of your income and assets." Vega leaned forward. "Which brings me to my concern. These errors you've been making at work. Several have been documented in emails that her legal team has subpoenaed. It looks like you're either distracted to the point of incompetence or deliberately trying to devalue the company before asset division." Wade allowed a small smile. "The latter would be illegal." "Yes, it would," Vega agreed, studying his client carefully. "Just as using confidential business information for personal gain would be illegal for Tessa, Mike Rafferty, and your brother." Hypothetically speaking, Wade said, if someone were creating a paper trail of apparent mistakes while simultaneously documenting others' efforts to exploit those mistakes for financial benefit, would that paper trail be admissible in both divorce proceedings and potential criminal complaints? Vega sat back, understanding dawning in his eyes. Hypothetically, yes. Especially if those exploitative efforts involve conspiracy to commit fraud or tortious interference with business relationships. Interesting, Wade said mildly. Now, about the counteroffer for temporary support. After finalizing the legal strategy with Vega, Wade headed to Cornerstone's main office for the first time in several days. His absence had been strategic, allowing certain information to circulate without his oversight. As he entered the building, he noted the subtle shift in how employees regarded him. The mix of sympathy and uncertainty in their expressions telling him that rumors were spreading as expected. Loretta met him at the elevator with a stack of messages and a concerned look. "The Sedona Project team has been trying to reach you all morning," she said as they walked to his office. "There's some confusion about the environmental impact revisions." "I'll handle it," Wade assured her. "Any other urgent matters?" Mr. Rafferty called twice, asking about the quarterly review we canceled. "He was quite insistent that you two need to meet." "I bet he was," Wade murmured. "Tell him I can see him tomorrow afternoon. Make it the last appointment of the day, when I'm likely to be tired and distracted." Loretta raised an eyebrow, but made the note without comment. In his office, Wade found exactly what he expected: evidence of someone having access to his desktop computer. The security system he'd secretly installed on all his devices had captured images of Cody using the password Wade had deliberately left visible on a post-it beneath his keyboard. Wade sent the security logs to Reed with a brief message. Fish took the bait. Monitor what files were copied. For the next several hours, Wade conducted business as usual, taking meetings and reviewing projects with apparent distraction. In reality, he was meticulously implementing the next phase of his plan. He approved a series of material substitutions for the Sedona project that appeared more cost-effective but would require significant redesign work later in the process. Work that would fall to whoever was heading the project at that stage. At 5 o'clock, as most employees were leaving, Wade received a call from an unknown number. He answered cautiously. "Mr. Harmon? This is Detective Mercer with Phoenix PD, Financial Crimes Division. I was hoping we could meet to discuss some concerns that have been brought to our attention regarding Cornerstone Engineering." Wade's pulse quickened slightly. "What kind of concerns, Detective?" "I'd rather not discuss it over the phone. Would tomorrow morning work for you?" "I have a full schedule tomorrow," Wade replied, thinking quickly. "But I could meet you tonight, if that works for you." It was a brief pause. "Tonight will be fine. Say, 8 p.m. at the station." After arranging the meeting, Wade immediately called Reed. "Someone's made a move with the police. Financial Crimes Division, Detective Mercer." "I know Mercer," Reed said. "Straight shooter, but not immune to pressure from the right sources. Want me to do some digging?" "Please. I'm meeting him at 8 p.m. I need to know who filed the complaint and what exactly they're alleging." While waiting for Reed's information, Wade drove to a small diner near the police station, one he knew was popular with law enforcement. He took a booth with a clear view of the entrance and ordered coffee. Just as his cup was being refilled, his phone vibrated with a text from Reed. "Complaint filed by Rafferty yesterday, alleging you're deliberately sabotaging Cornerstone to reduce value before divorce. Claims to have insider information from concerned employee. Guess who? Mercer's legitimate, but preliminary investigation only." Wade absorbed this information calmly. So they were accelerating their timeline, trying to get him removed from Cornerstone's leadership before the Sedona project reached its critical phase. It was an aggressive move, but one he had anticipated might come. At precisely 8 p.m., Wade walked into the police station and asked for Detective Mercer. He was shown to a small interview room where a trim, gray-haired man in his 50s waited with a folder of documents. "Mr. Harmon, thank you for coming in so promptly," Mercer began, gesturing for Wade to sit. "I understand you're going through a difficult personal situation at the moment." "My marriage is ending," Wade acknowledged. "But my business is solid, Detective, which is why I'm concerned about whatever allegations have prompted this meeting." Mercer nodded, opening the folder. "We've received information suggesting that you may be deliberately introducing errors into Cornerstone projects, particularly the Sedona development, to devalue the company before asset division in your divorce. That will be financially self-destructive," Wade pointed out. Cornerstone is my life's work. People sometimes make irrational decisions during emotional crises, Mercer replied. The complaint includes specific examples of recent errors in material specifications and environmental compliance documents. Wade leaned forward. Detective, may I ask who filed this complaint? You know I can't reveal that. You don't have to, Wade said. It's Michael Rafferty, isn't it? Working with information provided by my brother, Cody Harmon. Mercer's slight change in expression confirmed Wade's statement. What makes you say that? Instead of answering directly, Wade removed a flash drive from his pocket and placed it on the table. This contains documentation of a systematic effort by Michael Rafferty, my wife Tessa Harmon, and my brother Cody to exploit temporary disruptions in Cornerstone's operations during my divorce. You'll find evidence of unauthorized access to confidential business files, attempts to manipulate land values around our Sedona project, and financial transactions designed to capitalize on inside information. Mercer looked skeptical but took the drive. And the errors in your recent work are part of a counterintelligence operation to identify exactly how information was being leaked from Cornerstone, Wade explained. The errors are deliberate misinformation, documented as such in my secured private records, which are also on that drive. No actual project has been compromised. For the next hour, Wade walked Detective Mercer through the evidence he had compiled, careful to present himself as a businessman protecting his company rather than a husband seeking revenge. By the time they finished, Mercer's skepticism had shifted to cautious interest. This is complex, the detective admitted. I'll need to review everything carefully before determining next steps. Understand, Wade said. I'm not asking you to make arrests tonight. I just want on record that I'm aware of what's happening and am taking appropriate measures to protect my business interests. As Wade left the police station, he knew he had just changed the dynamic of the game. Rafferty, Tessa, and Cody had tried to use legal channels against him. Now those same channels might become their biggest vulnerability. But he wasn't relying solely on law enforcement. The legal system was just one piece of the intricate mechanism he was constructing, a mechanism designed not just to protect himself, but to ensure that everyone who had betrayed him would face the full consequences of their actions. Back in his downtown apartment, Wade poured himself a rare second scotch and opened his laptop. He accessed a secure server where he had been mapping out every connection, every vulnerability, and every pressure point in the network of relationships surrounding his betrayers. There was Rafferty's financial overextension, Cody's gambling debts to dangerous creditors, Tessa's desperate desire for legitimacy in the art world. Each represented a lever he could pull, a stress point he could exploit. And he was just getting started. Wade's phone buzzed with a message from Preston Galloway. Tessa came to me for money today. Said you cut her off completely. Is this true? Wade considered his response carefully. Preston remained a valuable connection, one he didn't want to alienate unnecessarily. She has access to $15,000 monthly for expenses, approved by both our attorneys. The house and her car are fully paid for. What she doesn't have is unlimited access to funds for her side ventures with Rafferty. Preston's reply came quickly. She didn't mention that first part. Claimed you were trying to financially abuse her. I didn't give her anything. Trust is earned in our family. Wade smiled grimly. I appreciate your discretion. Things will become clearer soon. Setting down his phone, Wade returned to his planning. The pieces were moving into place. Tomorrow's meeting with Rafferty would accelerate the process, setting in motion the final phase of his response to their betrayal. In the structural failure of buildings, there is often a point of no return, a moment when the accumulated stresses became irreversible, when collapse was no longer preventable but simply awaited the final triggering event. Wade was methodically guiding his betrayers toward that point, one calculated step at a time. Chapter 6, Pressure Test. The meeting with Mike Rafferty was set for 5:30 p.m. in Wade's office. Wade deliberately arrived 15 minutes late, his appearance slightly disheveled, a coffee stain visible on his otherwise immaculate shirt cuff. The image of a man unraveling was essential to the next phase of his plan. Rafferty waited in the reception area, scrolling through his phone with practiced nonchalance. At 45, he cultivated the look of a younger man, designer suits, carefully maintained physique, the kind of artificial tan that never faded regardless of season. He stood as Wade approached, extending his hand with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Wade, thanks for making time. I was beginning to think you were avoiding me." Wade accepted the handshake, noting the excessive pressure Rafferty applied. A small man's power play. "Mike, sorry about the delays. It's been a challenging period." He led Rafferty to his office, deliberately leaving the door ajar. Let him think Wade was careless, unaware of the need for privacy. "I heard about you and Tessa," Rafferty said as they sat down, his tone conveying rehearsed sympathy. "Tough break. Marriage is a minefield, isn't it?" "Sometimes the explosives are right where you least expect them," Wade agreed, watching Rafferty's face carefully. "But we're not here to discuss my personal life. You wanted to talk about the quarterly review." Rafferty launched into a prepared speech about the successful collaborations between his development company and Cornerstone, the potential for future projects, and his particular interest in the Sedona development. Wade allowed his attention to appear to drift periodically, shuffling papers and checking his phone, all while observing Rafferty's growing confidence. "The thing is," Rafferty eventually said, leaning forward conspirationally, "I've heard there might be some regulatory hurdles with the Sedona project. Environmental compliance issues that could cause delays." "Where did you hear that?" Wade asked, his tone mild but his eyes sharp. Rafferty shrugged. "People talk. Construction communities small. But I might have a solution. My company has acquired some adjacent properties that could serve as alternative access points. Might help expedite approvals if you're running into problems with the current plan." "That's quite a coincidence," Wade remarked. "You just happen to buy land that might solve problems you just happen to hear about." "Call it forward thinking," Rafferty smirked. "I've always believed in being prepared for opportunities." Wade allowed a long silence, letting Rafferty grow uncomfortable. Finally, he sighed heavily. "Look, Mike, I'm going to be straight with you. Cornerstone is facing some challenges right now. The divorce is complicated. Tessa's demands are substantial. I can imagine," Rafferty murmured, poorly concealing his interest. "The Sedona project is particularly vulnerable," Wade continued, lowering his voice as if sharing a confidence. "You're right about the environmental issues. There are some serious flaws in the sustainability metrics that weren't caught in the initial review. If they come to light during construction." He let the implication hang in the air. Rafferty leaned closer, barely able to contain his excitement. "That would be unfortunate. Delays, penalties, possibly even project cancellation." "Worst case scenario, yes," Wade agreed, "which is why I might be interested in discussing those adjacent properties. As a contingency plan." For the next half hour, they engaged in a careful dance. Rafferty probing for specifics about the project's vulnerabilities, Wade revealing just enough to seem desperate, but not enough to show his hand. By the time Rafferty left, arrangements had been made for a more detailed discussion the following week, including a site visit to Sedona. As soon as Rafferty's car pulled away from Cornerstone's parking lot, Wade closed his office door and accessed the recording system he'd activated before the meeting. He isolated the key segments where Rafferty had essentially admitted to using insider information for personal gain, then encrypted the file and sent it to both Dominic Vega and Detective Mercer. His phone rang almost immediately. It was Reed. "Rafferty just called Cody," Reed reported. "They're meeting tonight at the Capitol Grill. Want me to monitor?" "Yes, and see if you can get audio. I need to know exactly how they interpret what just happened." After ending the call, Wade sat back in his chair, reviewing the day's developments. The trap was nearly set. Rafferty believed he had found Wade's weakness and was moving to exploit it. Cody and Tessa would soon be brought fully into what they thought was their moment of triumph. But before that could happen, Wade needed to accelerate certain other elements of his plan. He placed a call to Preston Galloway. "Preston, I need a favor," he said when the older man answered. "It's about Tessa's art career." "What about it?" Preston asked cautiously. "I've been thinking about our conversation regarding her gallery aspirations. I know it's important to her, and despite everything, I'd like to see her succeed in that area." There was a pause before Preston responded. That's unexpectedly generous, given the circumstances. Maybe I'm trying to be the bigger person, Wade suggested. Or maybe I just want a clean break with no lingering resentments. Either way, I've arranged for Gabriel Ortiz to meet with her about a possible exhibition. Preston's intake of breath was audible. Gabriel Ortiz was one of the most influential gallery owners in the Southwest, known for launching significant careers in contemporary art. Wait, Ortiz doesn't meet with unknown artists. How did you arrange this? Cornerstone designed his new gallery in Scottsdale. He owed me a favor. What Wade didn't mention was that the meeting would be on his terms, with very specific parameters. I don't know what to say, Preston admitted. Tessa's been desperate for this kind of opportunity for years. Just make sure she knows about the meeting. Tuesday, 2 p.m. at his gallery. Tell her it's important she goes alone. Ortiz dislikes entourages or managers at initial meetings. After ending the call, Wade made another to Gabriel Ortiz, confirming the arrangement they had discussed earlier that week. Ortiz, who genuinely did owe Wade for expediting permits on his gallery renovation, had agreed to the unusual request with minimal questions. Remember, Wade instructed, evaluate her work honestly. If it has merit, treat it as you would any other artist's. If not, be direct but professional. This isn't about punishing her artistically. In the other matter, Ortiz asked, proceed as discussed. Record everything. With that piece in motion, Wade turned to his computer and accessed Cornerstone's project management system. He made several significant changes to the Sedona project parameters, changes that appear to be attempts to correct the errors he had mentioned to Rafferty, but actually created a deeper layer of problems that would only become apparent when construction began. These modifications were documented in a secure, timestamp file that clearly identified them as part of a counterintelligence operation. Simultaneously, he pushed through approvals for materials and contracts that would commit Cornerstone to the project timeline, while building in exit clauses that only he was aware of. By midnight, Wade had constructed an elaborate facade, a project that appeared viable but contained carefully hidden structural weaknesses, much like the relationship that was now collapsing around him. Anyone examining the Sedona development with standard due diligence would see a promising investment opportunity. Only someone with Wade's specific knowledge would recognize the fatal flaws embedded within its design. As he finally prepared to leave the office, Wade received a text from Reed. Audio secured from Capitol Grill. Rafferty believes you're desperate, looking for bailout options. Planning to offer partnership deal for Sedona as Lifeline, 60/40 split in their favor. Cody suggested accelerating timeline. Meeting with Tessa tomorrow to finalize approach. Wade smiled grimly. They were moving faster than anticipated, driven by greed and the scent of vulnerability. It was time to remove any remaining obstacles to their self-destruction. He composed a brief email to his executive team, announcing a 2-week leave of absence to address personal matters. Loretta would handle day-to-day operations, with specific instructions to facilitate any requests related to the Sedona project and to direct all inquiries from Rafferty's team to the project managers who were unknowingly part of Wade's counterintelligence operation. As Wade drove back to his apartment, he reflected on how quickly 15 years of marriage and a lifetime of brotherly trust had disintegrated. The pain remained, buried beneath layers of strategic calculation, but he refused to acknowledge it. Emotion was a luxury he couldn't afford right now. Later, when everything was finished, he would allow himself to process the full weight of the betrayal. For now, he needed to maintain absolute focus. The next 2 weeks would determine not just the future of Cornerstone Engineering, but the fate of everyone who had conspired against him. Wade had designed his response with the same precision he applied to his buildings, identifying load-bearing points, calculating stresses, and ensuring that when collapse came, it would be complete and irreversible. Chapter 7, Demolition. The gallery was bathed in the pristine light typical of high-end art spaces, shadowless, revealing, merciless in its clarity. Tessa Harmon stood in the center of the main exhibition room, surrounded by her paintings arranged carefully on stark white walls. Gabriel Ortiz circled slowly, studying each piece with the measured consideration of a man who had built his reputation on discovering authentic talent. Wade watched through the security feed Ortiz had granted him access to, observing his wife's nervous anticipation from the privacy of his downtown apartment. She looked different today, hair-styled conservatively, wearing a simple black dress that projected artistic seriousness. This was Tessa, the aspiring professional, not Tessa, the socialite wife, or Tessa, the scheming betrayer. "Your technique is competent," Ortiz finally said, stopping before a large abstract canvas dominated by swirls of crimson and gold. "You have good instinct for color relationships." Tessa's face brightened. "Thank you. I've been working on this series for nearly 3 years. However," Ortiz continued, his tone measured, "I don't see a distinctive vision here. These pieces reflect influences, Rothko, Mitchell, some Diebenkorn, but they don't speak with your own voice." The hope in Tessa's expression faltered. "I'm still developing my personal style. Many artists start by." "You're not a beginner," Ortiz interrupted gently. "According to your CV, you've been painting seriously for over a decade. By now, there should be something uniquely yours emerging." Wade watched as Tessa struggled to maintain her composure, caught between defensiveness and desperation for approval. This was the conversation she had both craved and feared throughout their marriage. Honest professional assessment rather than the polite encouragement of friends or the purchased praise of paid consultants. "Mr. Ortiz," she finally said, straightening her shoulders, "I appreciate your frankness. What would it take for you to consider representing me? I'm willing to develop in whatever direction you think would be marketable." Ortiz raised an eyebrow. "Art isn't about marketability, Mrs. Harmon. It's about necessity. The artist's necessity to express something only they can express. I don't sense that urgency in your work." "Please," Tessa said, her voice dropping. "This opportunity means everything to me. My husband, my ex-husband, he's trying to destroy everything I've worked for. This gallery would be my independence." Ortiz studied her for a long moment. "Interesting. When we scheduled this meeting, I was told you believe your husband was supporting your artistic aspirations." Tessa hesitated, clearly recalibrating her approach. "It's complicated. Wade did support me, financially, but emotionally, he never really believed in my talent. This divorce is my chance to prove myself. By leveraging his connections to advance your career?" Ortiz asked mildly. The color rose in Tessa's cheeks. "That's not fair. I've earned this opportunity." "Have you?" Ortiz gestured to the paintings. "These works show technical skill but lack emotional resonance or conceptual depth. They're decorative, Mrs. Harmon. Pleasant but forgettable." The brutal assessment hung in the air between them. Wade could see Tessa processing the implications, not just for this particular opportunity, but for the narrative she had constructed about her sacrificed artistic career. "Let me be direct," Ortiz continued. "I agreed to this meeting as a professional courtesy to Wade Harmon, whose firm has done exceptional work for my galleries. I reviewed your portfolio in advance and found it commercially adequate but artistically derivative. I took this meeting to confirm that impression in person." "Wade arranged this?" Tessa asked, her voice suddenly sharp. "Why would he do that when we're in the middle of a divorce?" Ortiz shrugged. "Perhaps he genuinely wants you to succeed independently. Or perhaps he wanted you to hear the truth from someone whose opinion you couldn't dismiss." Wade watched Tessa's expression shift from confusion to humiliation to anger. This was the first piece of his carefully orchestrated week. Removing the fantasy that had justified much of her behavior, the belief that her art career had been the sacrificial lamb of their marriage rather than simply an expensive hobby he had indulged. But the gallery meeting was just the opening salvo. As Tessa gathered her portfolio and made a dignified but hasty exit from Ortiz's gallery, Wade switched to another feed on his laptop, this one showing the Paradise Valley house. A moving truck was parked in the driveway, and workers were systematically removing selected items. Family heirlooms from Wade's side, specific furniture pieces he had brought to the marriage, and various personal items that held sentimental rather than monetary value. All legally, his under Arizona's separate property laws, all itemized in documentation his attorney had filed with the court that morning. Wade's phone buzzed with an incoming call from Tessa. He declined it, watching as she exited the gallery and stopped on the sidewalk, staring at her phone in frustration. A moment later, a text appeared. "What the hell are you doing? First, that humiliating gallery meeting, and now movers at the house. Answer me." Wade set the phone aside without responding and opened his email. A message from Dominic Vega contained confirmation that the emergency court hearing Tessa's attorney had requested to block the removal of property had been denied, with the judge citing clear documentation of separate property ownership. Another email, this one from Detective Mercer, indicated that the preliminary investigation into financial improprieties at Cornerstone had shifted focus based on new evidence. While not explicitly stated, the implication was clear: Rafferty and Cody were now the primary subjects of inquiry. The final piece came from Reed. Surveillance photos of Cody meeting with a man identified as Victor Solano, a known associate of one of Phoenix's more dangerous loan sharks. The meeting had not gone well, based on Cody's body language and the visible bruise forming on his jaw as he left. All the pressure points were being activated simultaneously. Tessa's artistic aspirations deflated, her comfortable home life disrupted. Rafferty's business schemes under legal scrutiny. Cody's dangerous debts coming due with no brother to bail him out. Each was feeling the first tremors of the collapse Wade had engineered. His phone rang again, Preston Galloway this time. Wade answered. "Tessa just called me. Hysterical," Preston said without preamble. "Says you're deliberately humiliating her and stealing from the house." "The gallery meeting was honest professional assessment," Wade replied calmly. "And I'm only removing items that are legally mine. Family pieces, things I owned before the marriage. Everything is documented." Preston sighed heavily. "I believe you. But Wade, she's still my daughter, despite her flaws. How far are you planning to take this?" It was a fair question, one that Wade had considered carefully. "I'm not doing anything illegal or even unethical, Preston. I'm simply ensuring that actions have consequences. Tessa, Mike, and Cody conspired to use me, to take what I've built. They need to understand what that really costs. And what about afterwards? What happens when you've made your point?" Wade stared out his apartment window at the Phoenix skyline. "I rebuild. Without them." After ending the call, Wade returned to monitoring the various feeds. By late afternoon, everything was proceeding as planned. The movers had finished at the house. Tessa had returned home to find her key no longer worked. Another legal maneuver Vega had executed, citing security concerns about unauthorized visitors given the valuable separate property remaining inside. Wade's personal phone had accumulated 37 missed calls and messages from Tessa, Cody, and even Mike Rafferty. His professional email contained an urgent request from Rafferty for tomorrow's site visit to Sedona to be moved up to today. Desperation was setting in exactly as he had anticipated. At precisely 7 p.m., Wade finally responded to Rafferty with a brief email. "Can't do today. Meet tomorrow at Cornerstone, 8 a.m. We'll drive to site together, bringing contracts for preliminary discussion." The response came within minutes. "See you at 8. Looking forward to working together on this." Wade smiled thinly. Rafferty believed he was closing in on victory, that Wade was capitulating under personal and professional pressure. The reality would become clear soon enough. As night fell, Wade drove to a secure storage facility where he had been keeping copies of all evidence and documentation related to his counterintelligence operation. He added today's recordings and updated the timeline of events, ensuring that everything was properly organized for what would come next. On his way back to the apartment, he passed the Paradise Valley house and saw Tessa's car in the driveway, along with another he recognized as belonging to Naomi, her sister. Through the windows, he could see them in animated conversation, Tessa gesturing frantically while Naomi appeared to be trying to calm her. For a brief moment, Wade felt a flicker of the connection they had once shared. 15 years of shared history, dreams, and intimacy. But the moment passed quickly, replaced by the cold certainty that the woman he had married existed only in his memory. The real Tessa had revealed herself on that live stream, planning her escape while mocking what they had built together. Back at his apartment, Wade made final preparations for tomorrow's meeting. He reviewed the modified Sedona project plans one last time, ensuring that the false vulnerabilities were convincing while the true exit strategy remained concealed. He confirmed the arrangements with key Cornerstone executives who had been brought into his confidence, selected for their loyalty and discretion. Everything was in place. Tomorrow would be the point of no return, the moment when all the stresses and weaknesses Wade had been carefully introducing would reach critical mass. The resulting collapse would be spectacular, irreversible, and entirely of their own making. As he finally prepared for sleep, Wade's phone chimed with one last message from Tessa. "Whatever you think you're doing, it won't work. You're not as clever as you think, Wade. You never were." He read it twice, noting the desperate bravado behind the words. Then he turned off the phone without replying and closed his eyes, sleeping soundly for the first time since the night of the live stream. Chapter 8. Implosion. The morning dawned clear and hot, typical for Phoenix in late summer. Wade arrived at Cornerstone's offices at 7:30 a.m., allowing himself time to ensure everything was in place before Rafferty's arrival. Loretta met him with coffee and a concerned expression. "Are you sure about today?" she asked quietly. "Once this starts, it can't be stopped," Wade finished for her. "Yes, I'm sure. Everyone knows their role." Loretta nodded. "The project team is prepared. Legal is standing by, and Mr. Vega will be here at 9:30 as requested." "Perfect." Wade took the coffee and headed to his office. "When Rafferty arrives, show him in immediately." At precisely 8 a.m., Mike Rafferty walked through Cornerstone's glass doors, dressed in what Wade recognized as his power negotiation outfit: custom navy suit, subtle red tie, Italian shoes. The confidence in his stride suggested a man who believed he held all the cards. "Wade." Rafferty greeted him with false warmth. "Appreciate you making time for this. I think today's going to be productive for both of us." "I certainly hope so," Wade replied, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. "Before we head to Sedona, I wanted to discuss terms." Rafferty settled into the chair, briefcase balanced on his knees. "I'm all ears. I brought some preliminary proposals for the partnership structure we discussed." "Partnership," Wade repeated, as if considering the word for the first time. "That's an interesting choice of terminology, given the circumstances." A flicker of uncertainty crossed Rafferty's face. "What do you mean?" Instead of answering directly, Wade pressed a button on his desk phone. "Loretta, could you ask the Sedona team to join us now?" Within moments, the office door opened to admit 4 people. Cornerstone's chief financial officer, the lead architect for the Sedona project, the company's environmental compliance officer, and a woman Rafferty didn't recognize. Wade introduced them each by name, ending with, "And this is Special Agent Claudia Torres, FBI Financial Crimes Division." The color drained from Rafferty's face. "FBI? What is this, Wade?" "This," Wade said calmly, "is the consequence of attempting to manipulate confidential business information for personal gain, conspiracy to commit fraud, and tortious interference with business relationships." He nodded to Agent Torres, who placed a recording device on the desk. "Mr. Rafferty, we have documented evidence of your collaboration with Cody Harmon and Tessa Harmon to exploit insider information about Cornerstone Engineering's projects, particularly the Sedona development." "That's ridiculous," Rafferty protested, but his voice lacked conviction. "I've done nothing illegal." Wade opened a folder and pushed several documents across the desk. "These are transcripts of your conversations with my brother over the past 6 months, discussing how to use information he provided to acquire adjacent properties to the Sedona project. This 1-inch," he tapped a particular page, "details your meeting with Tessa 3 months ago, where you outlined how to access Cornerstone's confidential files through my home computer." Rafferty's eyes darted between the documents and the faces watching him. "This is a setup. You can't prove any of this." "Actually," Agent Torres interjected, "we can. Mr. Harmon has been conducting a counterintelligence operation with the knowledge of law enforcement for the past month. The vulnerabilities in the Sedona project that you attempted to exploit were deliberate misinformation, documented as such in secured records. And this," Wade added, sliding across another document, "is a detailed financial analysis of your company's precarious position. The loans you secured to purchase those adjacent properties were based on fraudulent projections using Cornerstone's proprietary data. For several seconds, Rafferty seemed unable to speak. Then, rallying, he straightened in his chair. This is about Tessa, isn't it? You're using your company and these bogus accusations to punish her for leaving you. Wade's expression remained impassive. This has nothing to do with my divorce. This is about business ethics and legal compliance. The fact that you were sleeping with my wife while conspiring to undermine my company is certainly distasteful, but it's not why you're facing potential federal charges. Potential charges? Rafferty seized on the word. So nothing's been filed yet. That depends on what happens next, Agent Torres explained. The FBI is prepared to pursue this case based on the evidence Mr. Harmon has provided. However, there may be alternatives that could mitigate the consequences. Hope flickered briefly in Rafferty's eyes. What alternatives? Wade gestured to the CFO, who placed another document on the desk. This is an agreement requiring you to divest all properties adjacent to the Sedona project at the original purchase price, cease all contact with Cornerstone employees, including myself, and provide a complete accounting of all confidential information you've accessed. And if I sign this, the FBI may consider focusing their investigation on other parties who were more directly involved in accessing confidential information, Agent Torres said carefully. Rafferty's gaze hardened. You want to turn on Cody and Tessa. We want the truth, Wade corrected, about who initiated the conspiracy, who accessed which documents, and who provided what information. For several long moments, Rafferty stared at the document before him, weighing his options. Finally, he reached for a pen. I want immunity in writing. That's beyond my authority to promise, Agent Torres replied. But your cooperation will be noted in my report. As Rafferty began signing the agreement, Wade observed him with clinical detachment. The man had sought to dismantle everything Wade had built, had violated both personal and professional boundaries without hesitation. Now he was sacrificing his accomplices at the first sign of serious consequences. Once the document was signed, Agent Torres collected it along with her recording device. Mr. Rafferty, I'll need you to come to our field office to provide a formal statement. Now, Rafferty asked weakly. Now, she confirmed. After they departed, Wade turned to his executive team. Implement the containment protocol we discussed. Full audit of all projects Rafferty was associated with. Security review for any systems Cody might have accessed, and prepare the press statement about the strategic reorganization of the Sedona project. The team nodded and filed out, leaving Wade alone in his office. He allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction before picking up his phone to call Dominic Vega. It's done, he said simply. Rafferty signed the agreement and is with the FBI now. Time for Phase 2. I'll file the amended divorce petition immediately, Vega replied. With Rafferty's statement about Tessa's involvement, we have grounds for the fraud claim. How do you want to handle the house? Wade considered the question. The Paradise Valley house, despite its value and the memories it contained, now felt tainted by betrayal. Sell it. As part of the settlement, Tessa can have half the proceeds minus the costs of her unauthorized withdrawals. I've moved on. As Wade ended the call, his personal phone began ringing, Cody's number. After a moment's hesitation, he answered, Wade, what the hell is happening? Cody's voice was panicked. Rafferty just called Tessa, saying the FBI took him in for questioning about Cornerstone. He said you know everything. I do, Wade confirmed, his voice cool. Every conversation, every stolen document, every plan you three made. Listen, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think, Wade interrupted. You betrayed me, Cody. Your own brother. For what? 10% of a fraudulent development deal and some gambling debt relief. There was a long silence before Cody spoke again, his voice smaller. I got in too deep, Wade. These people, they were going to hurt me. Rafferty offered a way out. There were other options. You could have come to me. After helping you bail me out 3 times already, you made it clear last time you were done rescuing me. Wade felt a flicker of the old bond between them, the protective instinct that had driven him to shield his younger brother throughout their childhood. But the feeling faded quickly, replaced by cold reality. Solano's men found you yesterday, he said. That bruise on your jaw is just the beginning unless you settle your debt. Cody's sharp intake of breath confirmed Wade's information. How did you know about that? I know everything, Cody, including the exact amount you owe, $127,000, plus whatever Rafferty promised you that will never materialize now. Wade, please. I'm your brother. You can't let these guys hurt me. Wade closed his eyes briefly, considering his next words carefully. There's an envelope in your mailbox. Inside is a cashier's check for $127,000 made out to Victor Solano. It will clear the debt completely, with his agreement that they won't contact you again. Thank you, Cody breathed, relief palpable in his voice. I swear, Wade, I'll make this up to you. No, you won't. Wade cut him off. Because after you pay Solano, you're going to pack whatever you can carry and leave Phoenix. Today, the check comes with conditions, which are detailed in the accompanying letter. The most important one is that you never contact me again. What? You can't be serious. I've never been more serious, Wade said, each word precise and final. You're my blood, so I won't let them break your legs or worse. But you're dead to me, Cody. The brother I trusted no longer exists. Wade, goodbye, Cody. Wade ended the call and blocked the number. The severing of their lifelong connection brought a dull ache, but no regret. Family was supposed to be the foundation upon which everything else was built. Cody had undermined that foundation beyond repair. The next call came sooner than expected. Tessa, her voice shrill with panic. What have you done? The FBI just left here with a search warrant. They're following evidence of conspiracy and fraud, Wade replied matter-of-factly. Your involvement with Rafferty's scheme to exploit Cornerstone's confidential information has consequences, Tessa. It wasn't my idea, she protested. Mike approached me after he found out I was unhappy in the marriage. He said he could help me become independent, have my own gallery. Stop lying, Wade said quietly. I have recordings of you discussing how to access my computer while I was traveling. I have documentation of you transferring funds from our joint account to the LLC you created with Rafferty. I have a live stream where you called me a paycheck, not a soulmate, and outlined your plans for after the divorce. There was a moment of stunned silence before Tessa's voice returned, now cold with fury. You planned all of this. The gallery meeting, the house lockout, Rafferty's arrest. It was all some elaborate revenge scheme. I simply ensured that actions had consequences, Wade corrected. My attorney will contact yours with amended divorce terms reflecting the new circumstances. Given the evidence of financial fraud, I suggest you accept whatever is offered. Or what? Tessa challenged. Or face criminal charges alongside Rafferty. Agent Torres is particularly interested in the transfers from our joint account. The threat hung in the air between them. Finally, Tessa spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I never thought you could be this cold. You never really knew me, Wade replied. Just like I never really knew you. Goodbye, Tessa. As the call ended, Wade felt not triumph, but a weary resolution. The structures he had believed in, his marriage, his family bonds, his business partnerships, had been compromised beyond repair. All that remained was to complete the demolition and begin again on solid ground. His phone buzzed with a text from Reed. Cody just left his apartment with 2 suitcases, headed to the airport according to the tracker on his car. At least his brother had the sense to follow instructions. Wade sent back a brief acknowledgement before turning to his computer to check the final elements of his plan. The security footage from his home showed FBI agents carefully boxing evidence from Tessa's studio and the guest room she had converted into an office. In his downtown apartment building, similar agents were interviewing his neighbors about his whereabouts during key dates, a formality to confirm his alibi for the counterintelligence operation. Everything was proceeding as designed. By day's end, the Sedona project would be restructured under new leadership. Rafferty's company would be facing insolvency due to the forced property sales. Cody would be on his way to whatever new life he could cobble together, and Tessa would be confronting the reality of divorce terms that left her comfortable but far from wealthy. The demolition was nearly complete. All that remained was to survey the cleared ground and begin planning what would rise in its place. Chapter 9. Rebirth. 6 months later, Wade stood on the red earth of Sedona, watching as construction crews positioned the massive steel beams that would form the skeleton of the main lodge. The project had evolved significantly since its original conception, now incorporating advanced sustainability features and indigenous design elements that had earned praise from environmental groups and local tribal councils alike. The foundation tests came back perfect, said Elena Reyes, the new project director Wade had promoted from within Cornerstone. We're ahead of schedule and under budget. Wade nodded, pleased but not surprised. Elena had proven herself not just technically brilliant, but ethically uncompromising. Exactly the qualities he now valued above all else in his reorganized company. The press event is confirmed for next month, she continued. The governor will attend the groundbreaking ceremony. Good. Make sure Preston Galloway receives a personal invitation. He should see what his investment has helped create. As Elena moved away to consult with the construction foreman, Wade took a moment to appreciate the vista before him. The iconic red rock formations glowing in the afternoon sun, the expansive blue sky, the clean line of the horizon. There is something profoundly satisfying about building in such a landscape, about creating something that would enhance rather than detract from its natural beauty. His phone buzzed with an email notification from Dominic Vega. Final divorce decree signed by judge this morning. All terms accepted. No contest. You are officially a free man. Wade pocketed the phone without replying. The news brought neither joy nor pain, merely the quiet satisfaction of closure. The terms had been fair but firm. Tessa had received enough to maintain a comfortable life, but nothing approaching the wealth she had anticipated from their split. The fraud evidence had remained a Damocles sword throughout negotiations, ensuring her compliance without needing to be wielded publicly. Last he had heard, she had moved to Tucson and opened a small gallery with the settlement money. According to Preston, with whom Wade still maintained a cordial relationship, she was finally developing her own artistic voice, freed from the pressure of proving herself in Phoenix's more competitive scene. Cody had settled in Oregon, working at a regional engineering firm far from the high-stakes projects he had coveted in Arizona. The monthly reports Wade still received confirmed his brother remained sober and focused, though Wade had no intention of ever re-establishing contact. Some betrayals could be understood, but never forgiven. As for Mike Rafferty, his fall had been swift and complete. The forced sale of his Sedona properties had triggered a cascade of financial problems, revealing the extent of his over-leverage. Within 3 months, his development company had filed for bankruptcy, and he now faced federal charges related to securities fraud from previous projects unconnected to Cornerstone. Wade's own life had transformed in unexpected ways. He had sold the Paradise Valley house and moved permanently to the minimalist downtown apartment, finding that he preferred its proximity to Cornerstone's offices and the vibrant energy of Central Phoenix. The company itself had emerged stronger from the crisis, with improved security protocols and a leadership team purged of anyone with questionable loyalty. Mr. Harmon? A voice interrupted his thoughts. It was James Mercado, the cultural consultant hired to ensure the resort honored the region's indigenous heritage. Could I show you the modified entrance design? We've incorporated some symbolic elements that I think you'll appreciate. As Wade followed Mercado to the temporary project office, he reflected on how this rebuilding phase had changed him. The calculating coldness that had driven his response to betrayal had not disappeared, but it had been channeled into something more productive, a clear-eyed assessment of people and situations that helped him avoid further misplaced trust. The modified entrance design was indeed impressive, incorporating subtle petroglyphic elements that referenced the land's ancient history without crossing into appropriation. Wade approved it immediately, earning a grateful smile from Mercado. This project means a lot to the community, Mercado said as they walked back toward the construction site. Most developers who come here just see dollar signs. You seem to see something more. Wade considered this. I believe in building things that last, not just physically, but in their impact. When everything else falls away, relationships, reputations, the day-to-day concerns, what remains is what you've built. I want my legacy to be structures that enhance lives rather than merely containing them. It was perhaps the most personal statement he had made to anyone in months, revealing a philosophical core that had survived intact beneath the calculated vengeance and professional reconstruction. As the day drew to a close, Wade declined Elena's invitation to join the team for dinner in town, preferring to spend the evening alone in his hotel room, reviewing plans for Cornerstone's next major project, an urban renewal development in South Phoenix that would bring affordable housing and community spaces to an underserved neighborhood. His phone rang just as he was settling in with the blueprints. The screen showed Preston Galloway's name. "Preston," Wade greeted him. "I was just thinking about you. The Sedona project is coming along beautifully. I saw the progress photos Elena sent," Preston replied. "It's going to be spectacular, but that's not why I'm calling." Something in the older man's tone alerted Wade. "What's happened?" "Tessa came to see me today. She heard about the divorce being finalized." Preston paused. "She asked me to feel you out about possibly meeting for coffee. For closure," she said. Wade's expression remained impassive, though no one was there to see it. "And what do you think about that request?" "Honestly, I think she's finally grown up enough to recognize what she threw away. But that doesn't mean you owe her anything, including your time. Thank you for understanding that." Wade's voice was quiet but firm. "Please tell Tessa that I wish her well with her gallery and her new life, but there's nothing to discuss between us. I'll let her down gently," Preston promised. "And Wade, for what it's worth, I think you're handling all of this with more grace than most would manage." After ending the call, Wade returned to his blueprints, but found his concentration disrupted by Preston's words. Grace wasn't what had driven his methodical dismantling of those who had betrayed him. Precision, yes. Strategic thinking, certainly. But grace implied forgiveness, and Wade had not forgiven anyone. He had simply excised them from his life with surgical precision, cauterizing the wounds to prevent further damage. The structures he was now building, both literal and figurative, were designed with stronger materials, better safeguards, and clearer boundaries. Never again would he allow his foundation to be compromised by those he trusted. As night fell over Sedona, casting the red rocks in deepening shadows, Wade stepped onto his hotel room balcony and gazed at the stars emerging in the clear desert sky. The universe continued its expansive journey regardless of human dramas. Buildings rose and fell. Relationships formed and dissolved. What mattered was integrity. In structures, in business, in self. He had maintained his, even in vengeance. And now, as he contemplated the unblemished horizon before him, Wade Harmon understood that his most important construction project was just beginning. The architecture of a life rebuilt on his own terms, answerable to no one but himself, designed to withstand whatever pressures the future might bring. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed him had instead revealed his true strength. Not the ability to forgive, but the courage to rebuild without compromise, to face the world with clear eyes and a calculating mind that would never again mistake convenience for loyalty or passion for love. In the end, that was a foundation even the deepest betrayal could not shake. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.